That's us, everybody. Welcome to a Laugh and Learn about Human Design, Part 2, Gates and Transits. Woohoo! And I am here with Jennifer from My Holistic Self. And do you want to see what I have written on the back of my little card for you?
I know what you have written on the back.
What do I have? Let's see.
Write the book.
When you write,
When you write
but Jennifer, thank you for coming back.
My pleasure.
The last time we did this where we talked about human design, link is below to that. It's part of the Laugh and Learn series, so anybody can find it. Links to your website and places to find out more information about human design are there. So I have my report. You can get a report too, but you just have to do all of the right things. So, and this is being simulcast, so you may not see all of the chat. Multiple, we've got this going to 3 different locations, so that's all good. It's all good. So how are you?
Doing well. I'm so excited. I love doing these talks with you. So thanks so much for having me back. And and how are things for you?
Things are great. I have been enjoying doing a lot of things. Jeffrey and I celebrated our first wedding anniversary, so that was full. So yes. So all right. So let's say hi to a few people.
Most definitely.
We have Maruta, hello. Fatima, hello. And Akila B, 24 is here. Look, Kaylee, Fogo Pogo, hello. And White Wolf Mother, having internet repairs done in my area. Might not see the whole thing, but that's why we have playback. So, excellent. Oh, here you go. Got my chart and ready to take notes. No pressure, none whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Oh my goodness. So, Chris, Elemental Cartomancy is here. Hi, Chris. Thank you for joining us. And Jane the Seeker Tarot is here, and I am with Jane tomorrow morning. We're doing readings because it's Tuesdays with Tarot Stash exclusively on Jane the Seeker Tarot.
Awesome.
So, love that. And Renee, the Tarot Magician, is here. Hello. Flower Beauty is here. Hi. Good to see you. And Jane wants to know if she should grab her chart. Would that be helpful?
If you want to. I don't know how much we'll get into specifics of each of the gates and transits, but let's see what we have time for.
This will be it's a very high level introductory thing because Jen and I were talking backstage, and she's like going, well, I was taking notes on those questions you got me, and I'm like going, you're going to get a crash course in some stuff, and I'm like going, okay, we'll do what we can. Zane, Tarot Token Witchery, is here. Hey, Zane, good to see you. So, all right. So, the last time we were together, we did a discussion. We introduced human design to everybody. And for those of you who are playing at home, there are 2 books that are mentioned. One is this one, this is a hefty book.
It is. And this is, if you really want to dive in and get the nitty-gritty, everything you need to know to really begin to understand human design, that's the place you want to start.
Yes. And again, everybody knows the routine. Know your limits, purchase responsibly.
Mm-hmm.
You had also mentioned gene keys. So I did
Yes.
pick up this book and
Yeah. So now if you want to deep dive a little bit more and look at, again, now we're looking at the gates, okay? Because the gene keys is about the gates. So when we start to do our overview, you'll understand a bit about what that looks like.
Yep.
This is about taking a deep dive into your programming and what that looks like. And Richard Rudd, who does the gene keys, talks about the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. So it's really about what is it that I need to look at and work on transforming? What kind of creative process or genius do I have to bring forward? And what is that kind of next step level that I get to bring in that connects me to source that, I have capacity to tap into?
yes.
Right?
Yeah. And this really goes back to the idea of this is another way to understand how we as individuals operate. And it gives us an opportunity to have some information to help us work on the things that we have identified we want to work on.
Yeah. One of the things with human design, and what I find the most beautiful about human design, the gene keys, all of it, is the ability to look at something and go, wow. So all of these things I think I should be, I don't actually have to be.
Yes.
I'm allowed to just be what I actually believe is correct for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yes, because when we understand how we are naturally, it gives us the ability to use some of our natural strengths to counterbalance some of what might not be our strengths.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And it helps us to understand where conditioning comes into play.
ooh, okay.
Right. And so this is where we look at not self themes and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this is, again, you asked about, the transits, and we'll get into it as we, talk more. But this is where conditioning can also impact us. Right.
Okay.
And so, yeah. So we'll get there.
Yes, yes. Betsy is here. Hello, Betsy.
Let's see.
Debbie, no. Good to see you. Morella is here. Hello. And all right. So I did create a couple of banners and let's see if I can get them. So I'm going to, you can remind everybody about what human design is if you want, but we're specifically talking about gates and transits. And I hear you talk about transits a lot when you are with Tanis for the
Mhm.
Twillo Talk Live, which
Yeah.
is on Mondays at 5 p.m. Eastern.
Yes. Thank
So,
you.
yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, I guess a lot of you probably would have hopefully heard the human design talk that we did before,
Mhm.
and are a bit familiar with that. If you're not and you haven't heard it, obviously you're not going to have the opportunity to go and listen to it before we get started today. So, human design is kind of a synthesis of spiritual, scientific, and mystical traditions. Okay, so we got a bit of the I Ching, we got some astrology, some Kabbalah, some quantum physics, and human genetics. It's a whole bunch of stuff, right? And
Mhm.
yet it's none of those things.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Mhm.
Right? So, it's telling you a whole lot of nothing. But basically, what we're going to focus on today is how a lot of that kind of comes together. Okay.
Okay.
And so when we talk about this idea of gates and transits, when we're looking at gates, so let's start there. So a gate in human design, or a gene key in the gene keys, right? We're talking about designations of the hexagram. So in the I Ching, there, I think I should probably screen share so you guys can see some stuff.
Okay.
Let me pull up some things because I don't know how familiar everybody is with the I Ching. So let's see.
Well, I'm going to be learning about that because in a month, you and I are doing a deck casual about this deck.
Mm-hmm.
So stay tuned for that.
Yeah. So this is kind of like a intro to that.
Yeah.
All right. So let's see if I can share.
You should be able to. And
Where-
I see Ms.
Present.
Tehoji is here. Hello.
Share. Okay, so if I share this screen, you guys, if I share my...
Just released I Ching book. You should be able to.
Yeah, it's wanting me to pick, but it's not letting me pick my Finder, which is interesting. Hold on. Window. Oh, there it is. Preview. Okay. Share. And it doesn't give me permission.
Wait a minute.
Of course. Okay.
Apparently, I'm,
Yeah, it wants me to go to system preferences and do a whole bunch of stuff. So anyway, it's being silly. Let's see if I can do it on here. That's a really small picture.
Why is that not doing that?
You know what? I can probably use a picture in the book to show you guys.
Okay. And I also have the book. So if you want to thank everybody for their patience.
Yeah, sorry that it's not letting me do this. I don't know. I wonder if it will let me just put one in the comments and then you guys can all just open it. I wonder if that would work.
We can try.
Hey, why not, right? So let's pop this in there. No. All right. It's not doing it. I should have just printed stuff so I could just hold it up and show you.
Well, does it help if I have this?
No.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, sorry. Okay. And I have the book.
Let's do this. I'm going to start off with something pretty simple, right? So in the world, we have binaries, right? So 0, 1, 0, 0, 0,
Yes.
0, 1. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in the I Ching, everything is kind of based on that in this idea of yin and yang. Okay.
Yes.
So in yin, we have, let's see if I can find a blank piece in here. Yeah, here we go. So we have the yin, which is the feminine kind of side, right? So we've got
I'm going to embiggen you. There you go.
Embiggen me. I love it. Okay. And then we have the yang, right? Which is the solid line.
Okay.
I know I'm drawing really like with a pen here. All right. So we've got both sides of this, right? And so we build from these blocks. And so we have then, we'll build into it, right? So now we have 2, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what ends up happening is we get what are called trigrams, right? So then there's 3, right? And these trigrams are different because we talk about binary, right? So we go from everything from 3 yin to 3 yang. So we have, and then a yang, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we have yin, yang, yin.
So
right?
it's.
You see how I'm building it?
Yes. Okay.
Right?
So it builds. Mm-hmm.
It builds. And this is the idea. So as it builds, this is where we get the different trigrams. So there's earth, mountain, water, wind, thunder, fire, lake, and heaven. Now, each of these trigrams come together to form, so there's 8 of those, right? And each of these come together to form the 64 hexagrams of the I Ching.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I'm going to come back to the front of the book.
Yes.
Okay, because this is where we're going to see on the front here, if you look really closely around the outside, you can see all of those hexagrams.
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what ends up happening here is each of these hexagrams is also assigned a number. So do you see how there's a number now in each of these lines? or each of these
Yes.
blocks. Now, each of these numbers is also somewhere on this body graph.
Okay. Yes.
Okay.
And that's the body graph.
And so that's the body graph.
So.
Now, what happens is when we are born and 3 months prior to our birth, we are imprinted with where everything is aligned in the heavens. And that's the astrology piece, right? So
Mhm.
what ends up happening is that, and we can get into, and I'll get into some of the language here when we talk about like neutrinos and all of that kind of stuff. But basically, we're imprinted with our personality at the time of birth and our design that 3 months before. And
Mhm.
all of that information is in that body graph.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And it's based on those 64 hexagrams.
Okay.
Okay. And each of those 64 hexagrams represents different traits or qualities.
Sure.
Okay.
Mhm.
So in the human design, we look at what those traits or qualities are specifically. And then we also have lines that go with them, which that'll be when we get into the cards. We can talk about all of that piece. And then in the gene keys, we take that a bit further to get into, again, that shadow, the gift, and the Siddhi piece that goes with
Mhm.
each one of those 64.
Yes.
Okay, you with me with all of that?
I think I am.
Okay.
Because when people get a report, I'm going to put us back. When people get a report, it looks similar to this to help understanding it. Is that correct?
That is correct. And so what you can see here is in your body graph, you're going to have certain things highlighted in black or red, right? And that is what's defined for you versus things that are not highlighted. They have no color to them in there. And
Mhm.
those are things that were not defined for you, right? And so when we're talking about that conditioning piece, these are things that we want to look at.
Right.
All right.
Mhm.
And so that's what we talk when we're talking about gates, that's what we're talking about.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Okay. So when we talk about transits, we're talking about the movement or location of the heavenly bodies at a particular time and space.
Mhm.
Okay. So your body graph is telling you the transits at the time of your birth, specifically,
Mhm.
right? But on Twillo Talk, when I talk about the transits, I'm talking about what's going on right now.
Yes.
All right. And so in Vedic astrology and stuff, which Michelle can talk about way more than I can,
Mhm.
but she's talking about what's happening right now too, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so we always talk about trying to compare notes and seeing what's similar and what's different. But again, depending on if you're using tropical or Vedic, and
Mhm.
human design has some controversy over that, depending on how much of a purist you are with it.
Mhm.
I say go with whatever resonates. But ultimately, depending on what you use, you're going to look at where the stars are, see what the transits are telling you, and that energy is potentially impacting you at any given time.
So the transit, and I'm just going to say this. So tell me how wrong I am. Is transits are those things that are like when the moon is in Pisces, and so to relate it to something that a lot of the popular culture understands.
That kind of thing, yes. In
Yes.
human design, we would be looking at which gates are in which planets, like,
Okay.
right? But it's
Oh.
the same kind of idea.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And so for us, they talk about the rave mandala, which is this version of the I
Uh-huh.
Ching, right?
Yes.
And so it's about which gate is in which sun or planet or node and how that affects us and our conditioning.
Yes. Yes. Um, Morella said, so we have all 64.
We have the entire body graph. So we have all 64. It's just that not all are defined for us.
Yes. And you can see, oversharing. This is Gerald's, and this lets you know I am, but this doesn't mean a whole lot to me. It means a whole lot to you because you get a lot of what's going on. So, and Ms. Tarot D said tarot and algebra. Well, maybe, but we have somebody here like Jen who makes it make sense to us.
That's the goal.
Yes.
That's the goal. So I want to talk a bit about conditioning, but let's jump into some of the vocab, I guess, that I used first, because I want to talk about neutrinos.
Neutrinos, everybody. There you go. Today, this portion of the video is brought to you by neutrinos. So, and okay, so hold that thought for a second, because we have some of the best chatters are bringing some questions, and I want to get them close. Does it change if you're born in a different country and time? I think
Yes.
yeah. Okay, so your placement changes.
Yeah. So when you input for your specific body graph, you're going to put in your time, your date of birth, your time of birth, and your place of birth.
Okay.
So that everything is calculated based on where you were actually born.
Okay. And this also goes to what Morella is saying. So the 64 are all different for everyone. The placements are different. Is that more accurate?
I'm not sure I'm understanding exactly what the question is saying. The 64 are always the same on the body graph.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yes. Okay.
What's different is, Gerald, if you hold up yours again, if you look down the red line here and the black line of blocks on his body graph, you'll see the symbols there for the sun and the earth and the nodes and so on, all the way down with the planets, and there's numbers in them. Every person's blocks there are going to have different numbers in them depending on their placements. And those numbers correlate with what is defined within his body graph. Okay. But we'll all have the entire body graph, and we'll all have the full line of planets. It's just what a number that correlates with the hexagrams is going to be different for each person.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense. And 12 hours can make a difference. Yes.
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 Yes, it can.
Tessa said thank you, and Pierrette is here. And Jane, there are no silly questions. This is probably silly, but what if your DNA has a flaw? I was born with a syndrome. I'm not sure that has anything to do necessarily with the body chart, correct?
No, I mean, it does talk about with our DNA in the sense that it's imprinted in us, but it's like an energetic blueprint, right? And our energetic blueprint does impact our physical blueprint.
Yes.
Right? Yes. If we understand that those things are intricately connected. So in that sense, there is a connection there, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be, flawed or anything like that. What I would say is, everything with human design, even what Ra, who was kind of the medium who brought this through the voice, which we talked about before, he says it's an experiment, right? You're here to practice it, to experiment with it, to see what works for you, see what resonates for you, right? So if something doesn't resonate, try something else and see how it feels.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. And Morella said, Jennifer, yes, that's what I was thinking. Thank you. So, okay. So you were giving us a word. That word was
neutrinos.
Thank you. I was going to say neurons, and I'm like, that's not quite right. So, all right. Neutrinos.
Yeah. Because to really get into some of this, and I know we have to talk about a few things that, neutrinos are one of them, right? So neutrinos, sometimes they're called ghost particles because they're so small. But basically, what has been found is that these neutrinos come from space. So about 70% come from the sun, but they also come from the stars and all of that.
Mhm.
And they contain very minuscule amounts of mass. And that
Mhm.
mass contains information, right? And so you think about it when we talk about the transits and stuff and astrology and all of this, why does it work? Why does it make sense? Why does what's happening up there actually impact us here?
Oh, okay.
Right? There has to be some kind of connection. Like, how does that get here?
Mhm.
Right?
Yes.
And so what's happening is every second, trillions of these neutrinos are passing through us and through the earth.
Mhm.
Okay? And they're bringing with them information. And so that is constantly changing as the heavens are changing, right?
Okay.
As the stars and all around us are changing, the information that they're sending down is different,
Mhm.
right? So what ends up happening is this infinitesimal amount of mass is leaving behind a bit of information
Okay.
every time it passes through us,
Mhm.
right? And so we're connected to this stream of information,
Okay.
okay? So we talk about things like collective consciousness and all of that kind of stuff. Well, we're connected to it because of this information stream that is always happening.
This is fascinating, people. I mean, I'm just like, yeah, because that also makes sense because I understand I'd not thought about the neutrinos, but when we have people are impacted by the phases of the moon, and Tanis is always talking about the solar things that are going on.
Hmm.
So, I mean, okay. I mean, anybody else fascinated by this? I will just say my mind is blown, everybody. And it's fascinating because we can we can pay attention to them or we can not pay attention to them.
Yeah, and we can choose to not pay attention to them and just go about our business. But
Yes.
there are people who actually will pay attention to the moment that the transits are changing, and they will go out in public and watch the shift in conversation,
Oh man.
right? That happens the moment these energies change,
Yeah. The
right?
physics of the universe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Fogo is like my inner nerd is so happy right now. So,
Yeah. So there's
um
a couple more kind of human design terms, right? That we want to kind of look at.
yes,
So
please.
we
Please.
have basically three parts in human design. We
Okay.
have what's called the design crystal, which is the body or the vehicle.
Mhm.
We have the magnetic monopole, which is our being, who's supposed to be the driver of this vehicle. And we have the personality crystal, which is the mind, who's
Ooh,
supposed to be the
okay.
passenger. Okay. So when we break this down, okay, the design crystal, which is the body, right? This is the prime yin aspect of us. Okay.
Okay.
This part of us um, is in the ajna center of the. So when we look at the human design, right? We'll look at kind of where that's at.
Do
That's the ajna, this little green one here.
this one right here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay. And then we've got the personality crystal, so the mind,
Mhm.
okay, which is supposed to be the passenger, but it thinks it's in charge. This is part of our dilemma most of the time, right? Which is our
Surprise.
yin yang,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
This is our potential for self-reflection and consciousness, which is not necessarily a bad thing, except when it thinks that it's in charge, right?
Okay.
And
Yeah.
this is just above the head center,
So is it the yellow?
just above the head center.
So it's right here, people.
Mm-hmm.
I should have my
Right.
tiny hand out. So, but
You
okay.
should have your tiny hand out. And then we have what's called the magnetic monopole, okay, which is our prime monopole. This is located in the G, okay, which is our guidance.
And
Okay,
where is that?
that
That's
diamond right there. Yeah, you got it. I love that. There you go. There's your hand.
and you notice how mine has, it's not colored, everybody.
It's not defined.
It's not. I am unlimited. Go ahead.
There you go. That's what it means. You are open. Okay, and this it's here to attract. Okay, and it's supposed to draw us along a specific geometry called fractal lines. Okay, that connects us to the totality of everything. All right. So when we're talking about all of this together,
Mhm.
right? We have these fractal lines. So we talk about meeting people and we're just drawn to them, right? We're on fractal lines together.
Okay.
Okay? Our crystals line up. They connect.
Sure.
Right? And then there's other people who, as much as we want to be with them or want to connect with them, it just doesn't work. Right? Because we're not on their fractal line.
Okay.
Okay? And so remember how I was saying earlier about this idea of giving ourselves permission?
Yes.
Right? And how
Yes.
much we try to just force things.
Yes.
Yeah. This is a prime example of that. It's okay. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be.
Yes.
We're not made for everybody. Right?
Yes.
And so, coming back to this idea of gates and transits and all of that, we're meant for specific purposes, and we're meant for specific people and specific interactions, right? But because we go through all of the transits, we experience all of the experiences.
Yes.
And so we have to be really mindful when these different things are happening to know what we're being influenced with. Right?
Okay.
So that we can go, oh, wait a minute. This is just the energy of right now. This isn't mine.
That's a really important thing. This is the energy that's, because I've talked about that. A lot of people in the last week have been discombobulated. Things have been gone out wacky, and it's difficult for people to be aware. Is this mine or is it out there? So, wow.
Yeah. Right. And so when we come back to this idea of conditioning, this is such an important piece, right? Because there's this pressure or this expectation, right, that we're supposed to show up in a certain way, or that we're supposed to think a certain way, or act or respond or whatever it is. And, a lot of times the pressures that we feel, whether they're put on by people around us or we just somehow feel them, right? That can often come from what's in the transits in that moment.
Yes. Yes. Is it okay to take a pause right now and look at some of the questions? Because I've started some more questions because, okay, I already answered that one. Marita, actually, that's an interesting theory. What about dark matter? Is there anything about that in the human design or the gene keys about dark matter?
About dark matter. I have not read anything about dark matter in human design. That being said, I have not read everything there is to read about it. I know that when we talk about the crystals, there was, I'm trying to think now, there was something about dark matter and the initial kind of splitting of the crystals, but I'd have to go back and actually check that before I answered to make sure I wasn't answering.
It's a thoughtful question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lori Huntsinger said, I'm completely fascinated in this. I follow a young lady that does the Schumann energies of the day. So
Okay.
the Schumann energies would impact that. By the way, Nancy Crohn's Intuition is here.
Okay.
And okay, there was a question. Morella asked, are those chakras?
So they are similar to the chakras. So what Ra talks about is the fact that we moved from a 7-centered being or 7-chakra being to a 9-centered being.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some people will actually talk about the idea that some of the chakras actually split. That's not something that Ross specifically said. I think that when you look at quantum human design, which is a different kind of spin-off of quantum of human design, there's a lot out there, people. So it depends on the school of thought that you follow. I think that she talks a bit about that idea, that I think like the heart chakra split into the G center and the will center.
Mm-hmm.
So there are correlations that are made specifically between the chakras and the human design centers. I mean, the ajna is the ajna, right? So like you talk about those correlations and they are very clearly there.
Yes.
The spleen center is an awareness center. Whether or not that is also a split off from the solar plexus center.
Yeah.
Again, like I go with say what resonates. If it
Sure.
resonates for you, go with it. If it doesn't, don't.
Sure. Okay. And Medium Betsy Palmer said, this is so far over my ability to process after my 3 10-hour back-to-back work shifts. Yet I can't look away. Well, and she also said something, is this mine, the empath's mantra? Because when we are aware that stuff can be influencing us,
Yeah.
really does make sense. And
Well, and it's such an important piece, right? Because this pressure to conform to these patterns, right? In human design, we call it like the not self or not self themes. In mental health, we talk about adaptive or maladaptive or non-adaptive strategies that help us to cope, right?
Mhm.
And so we look at it and go, okay, are these behaviors, are these patterns that I have, are they actually true to who I am and who I want to be in the world?
Mhm.
Are they actually authentic for me? And are they moving me towards my values and my purpose? Or are they moving me away from them?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Um, and does the energy change when your chi is too open?
So let's look at that for a minute, okay?
Okay.
Because, all right, Gerald, you've put your chart up a couple times. All right. So Gerald is
Hide this comment so that people can see it.
very open, right? He has 3 of his centers are defined, and all of the rest are open.
So
All
these
right.
are open down here.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Right. Somebody whose chart is fully defined or mostly defined is going to be very set or more set, I should say, in how they are.
Uh-huh.
Somebody who is very open is going to be way more flexible, but they're also going to be susceptible to that conditioning,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
right? And so when we talk about that openness, there is a potential for that,
Mm-hmm.
right? One of the types or aura types in human design is called a reflector. And a reflector is completely open. There's no definition in the centers at all. All right. There you go. And so their aura is considered to be sampling. They're constantly feeling and the aura around them, and they're reflecting that.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's happening is because they're constantly doing that, they have to take that time alone to really feel what's going on for themselves.
Yes.
They also have to wait a full lunar cycle from making important decisions in their lives.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Right? So that's their authority when it comes to decision making. And the reason for that is because their openness makes
Mhm.
them more susceptible.
Sure. Sure. Okay. Um, this is very engaging. We've got 20 people watching, 21 people watching. Hello to everybody who has come in. Diana, also known as Wonder Woman. So and okay, and okay, so let's okay, so gates and transits. Go ahead and you know, the floor is yours. I will actually shut up.
Where to go from here? Well, okay, so we talked about what we can learn from them, right? And I think that, you know, one of the things that's really interesting that we can take a look at is, you know, when we look at bringing in the gene keys as a part of all of this,
Hmm.
um, what he does is he takes the different gates that we have in our definition, and he looks at things like our life's work, our radiance, our evolution, our purpose, right? And that's just for our genius. And so we can look at these kind of paths that we can journey on for self reflection if we really want to take the time to learn about ourselves and to understand our patterns and to understand, you know, some of the things that come up for us and why maybe we struggle with certain things the way that we do.
Yes.
And this is where, when we look at it, we can go, okay, wow, this actually is hugely impactful for me,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
Um, and so when we talk about, you know, I give this overview of what the transits are doing. And if you were to look at your chart and go, oh, well, that transit's actually defined for me, and that transit is my, you know, my sun, my personality sun,
Hmm.
you may just feel more empowered in that area.
Yes.
And it might not have, you know, a huge kind of impact on you versus, say, you know, a transit is activated, and let's say it's a transit that actually completes a channel for you that you don't
Oh.
normally have.
Uh-huh.
And now all of a sudden you have energy for this area in your life that you don't normally have energy for,
Very fascinating.
right?
Wow.
So, you know how sometimes we do this? Well, last week I was so good at that, and this week I just can't handle it.
Hmm. There you go.
That's it.
Yes. And okay. Yeah, because this is, and again, I think this is that opportunity to, when we know that these things are available to us, just to understand what's going on, it helps to inform how we engage and interact with the world.
Yes.
And nothing's ever written in stone per se, of as you can do whatever you want whenever you want. Do you want it to be easier or do you want it to be harder?
Yeah. Well, and that's the piece, right? So, like, I'll look at my chart. I have no defined energy centers either. So, my chart's similar to you in that way.
Mhm.
But I may have, you know, a transit that defines an energy center for me.
Sure.
And all of a sudden that week I am full of energy,
Yes.
right? I have to be careful I don't burn myself out that week.
Oh, okay, that's true. Yes.
Right? Because I might just push, 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 push to get stuff done because I have all this energy that I don't normally have,
Hmm.
right? So there are definitely things that being aware of what's going on in the transits and being aware of how they impact your personal chart
Yes.
can be very valuable.
Yes. And in your job as a counselor, clinical, what's the exact word?
Psychotherapist.
Okay, clinical psychotherapist. This helps you because you understand it of how someone naturally works, and then you can identify some of their, and again, for entertainment purposes only, you can identify some of their natural tendencies and then identify what may be conditioning.
Yeah. So what we would do is, kind of like when we first started talking about it, and I just kind of asked you questions,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? And said, so did you ever experience, this, that, or the
Oh,
other?
yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
you went, oh my God, yeah, that's so me.
Yes. Yes.
Right? And
Mhm.
it's that moment of being able to say, okay, well, when I look at your chart, this is where that comes from. And you go, oh, right? And then you have a choice. It's like, okay, do I want to honor this part of myself or do
Mhm.
I want to deny this part of myself?
Yes.
Right?
Mhm.
And so when it comes to psychotherapy, the work that we do is how do we love ourselves for who we are?
Ah, yes. Very
Right?
true.
So
Very true.
there is that kind of, educational piece and in understanding what it's saying, but it's also about being able to embrace our experience,
Mhm.
right?
Yes. Yes.
And being able to go, oh, look, this is something that I actually struggle with.
Mhm.
Okay, what do I want to do about that?
Okay, so just to get caught up in chat, Diana, Oil Painter, said, as an astrologer, I am absolutely loving this.
Awesome.
And Morella agrees. Heather Caldwell is here. Morella also said, so all our transits affect us emotionally, energetically, etc.
Yes.
They either, it's like the idea of Mercury retrograde. For some people, it creates fear in them. And what I understand in chatting with Michelle Marie and in my own studies, it depends upon where it falls in your chart.
Mhm.
You may actually kick butt during the time. So, um,
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
Well, and this is the piece too, right? Like, so right now, for this month, we are in the spleen. So a lot of the gates that we're going to be going through are in the splenic center.
Which would be here.
So
I lost my
go.
finger. I lost my hand.
So yeah, from that center square, move over to the red.
Right. Okay. So center square. No, center.
Yeah, from that center square, now move over to the red triangle, like to the red side, that triangle there. That's the spleen right there. There you go.
Okay.
Okay. So we're going to be going through the gates of the spleen. All right. And the spleen is about survival instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there's a whole lot of fears that are going to be coming up, a whole lot of am I good enough going to be coming up,
Mm-hmm.
right? A whole lot of these themes of what do I want to let go of? What do I want to, right? Very much in line with the season and what we're going through right
Absolutely.
now,
Yes.
right? And so being mindful of that and going, okay, when this comes up for me, I notice, okay, this is the fear, this is the shadow around it. This is the gift, this is the siddhi. Okay, how do I move through this? How do I notice it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do I address it? And how do I allow space for this gift aspect to come
Sure.
through?
Sure. Yeah. When we are in sync with what is going on around us within nature, things seem to yeah. For me, when I'm in sync, things seem to flow better. I'll say it
Hmm.
that way. And um, so, because Gerald is so open, is that why he's so into laughing and learning? Yeah. Because I'm curious, because I need more information, right?
Well, your head is defined. So you have a very set way that you go about getting and gaining your information, and your laugh and learns are exactly how you do that, right?
Yes. I'm doing this behind the camera. Yes, yes, you were right. Yes. Okay.
Right?
Yeah. And we had a question is Funboy asked, does the book show how to energy work the 9 chakras? I don't believe so.
I'm not quite sure I understand what the question is. But when we talk about doing energy work with them, the more we understand what the traits are that go with each of the centers, and the more we understand the patterns that align with those centers, the more we can work with the energy of them.
Absolutely. And yeah, Morella also was saying that, the laugh and learns are how I do things.
Mm-hmm.
I feel seen, everybody. Don't use that up against me. Okay. All right. So the floor is yours. Thank you. We're caught up.
Oh,
Chat.
okay.
So,
Yeah.
no
So,
pressure.
yeah. All right. We're caught up on questions. Okay. So let's see. Where are we? We're October 16th. All right. So we are just kind of entering into the 32nd transit. Okay. So this is duration. All right. The gate of continuity. We're looking at conservation. Okay. So in the gene keys, we're looking at failure, moving to preservation, to veneration.
Okay.
Okay. So the energy here is tribal energy, right? It's about our families, our close knit groups. Again, splenic gate. It's an awareness gate, and it's about the value of being able to know, is it worth transforming something?
Okay.
So when we look at this idea of, failure and how that's showing up for us, right? You might have an experience and just be like, okay, this isn't working. Okay. What are you going to do with that? Right? Where are you going to go with that? And where are you going to let that take you?
Yes.
Okay. So we talk about patterns and patterns in the mind, right? We can allow that to bring us down, and we can allow that to take over. And, that can be a pattern that we have, right?
Yes. Yes.
Or we can look at that and go, okay, that didn't work. Now what?
And that depends upon where things are in your chart. What supports you while this is happening in the big picture stuff, in the outer world.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the thing is, we can take it in so many different ways, right? And so we can have it as this kind of contradicting energy, right? That becomes repressive and fearful, and can get really kind of tight and strict, right? In the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd talks about it as being this kind of like fundamentalist energy where it's like choking it, right? This idea of almost starving yourselves of breath. This idea that like there's so much fear of this failure that it's just like that's like you just cut yourself off, right? And if this is how it is and that's it, and it can go all the way to the extreme of like cults and extreme paranoia and all of that kind of thing, right? And the idea is because we're trying to figure out how to navigate this energy, right? all the way to the other side of the shadow aspect, which could be, losing that continuity and falling into anger, not feeling supported or giving yourself support, getting into self-destructive patterns, all of that kind of stuff, right? And so, being able to self-reflect and notice, like, okay, when I hit that space or I have that narrative come in, what do I do with this?
Yes.
Right? And notice it. And so on the chart, again, I'm using this like, tiny book is my little thing. So, but on yours,
You want to use this, or you want?
yeah. Well, I'm just looking at the 32, right? It's down here. So if you look at it, the 32 connects to the root, right? 54. So there's a pressure, right? So if you happen to have that, connected, which, on yours there isn't, so it becomes a hanging gate for you. But then for somebody who has that, you may activate that channel, and now there's this kind of pressure for you, right? To get some things done, to move forward with stuff,
and each of these, these are the gates as you were describing them here. So, or those are the gates.
every number.
Yeah, okay, that's the gate number.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So there's 64 numbers on each of the what do you call this? The aura type.
On the body graph?
On the body graph, there's 64 numbers. Okay. And by the way, this is the assistant.
This is the assistant, yes.
Yes. And Michelle Marie is here. Hello.
Hello, hello.
And okay. And Hypnicity, you get your chart done by following the link in the description. There's a couple of links there. So, and Teresa Ford said, is this sort of an energy of winnowing out of the shaft? So we use energy on what we truly value, and Teresa's trying to understand. I'm wondering if I'll stop talking.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to understand winnowing out of the shaft. Can you?
I think it's like separating the wheat from the chaff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
As you were describing. Okay.
Yeah, basically. So, yeah, using energy on what you truly value, most definitely. I mean, the whole idea behind human design, to start with, is kind of what we talked about in the very first video. And that's the key and the foundation, is to understand your aura type, your strategy, and your authority. And by doing that and by honoring that, you begin to do exactly what you're talking about and live in a way that is honoring what is correct for your energy and not doing things that are not correct for your energy.
Yeah. And Marella asked, is that why some are procrastinators and some are not?
It can be. I mean, I know there's talk about where procrastination shows up in different aspects of the chart. And so depending on, where that comes from, whether it's an issue with not having, the energy or the pressure to do something, versus having that pressure from somebody else and maybe rebelling against it, versus not having, the mental pressure to know what to do or where to go. I mean, there's so many different components to it. You have to dive deeper to really be able to answer that in a very succinct way.
These are really thoughtful questions. I think that's great. And Jen, Inspiration Psychology with Jen, is here, and Prepping Coffee. She is in Australia, so and trying to control my ADHD brain from the tangents as all of this info has my mind going in a million directions. Yes, you're welcome.
So I did a talk on the Mind Body Connection Summit just this past week. And
Yes.
one of the things, because I talked about human design and we talked about the head center. And one of the key things that is so important to remember is the head center has all of the questions, it has all of the inspirations, it has none of the answers.
Ooh.
Okay.
Okay.
It's okay to let it go in all of its different directions. It's okay to not try to make sense of every little thing.
There you go, everybody. At 1 hour in, there's a big takeaway for me. That's incredible. That's incredible. So, by the way, how was the talk?
It was really good.
Excellent.
Yeah, it went well.
Excellent. Well, you are all that. So, and everybody can say I remember seeing her before she wrote her first series of books. I mean, she's already got books written. So, so anyhow, okay, so we are at an hour, and this is an incredible amount of information. And so, some of the stuff that I talked about is the gates are this stuff and where they fall around the aura type,
Body
or
graph.
the body graph. Thank you, the body graph. And these don't go in. These are not in numerical order around here.
No.
They go in different places, which is fine. And then a transit is what's going on in the universe, in the world outside of me. And the neutrinos are from those different bodies, or those different energies are influencing us because they're engaging us as sunlight provides us with vitamin D, amongst other things.
You got it.
Okay.
You got it.
Woo. Here. I got it, people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? We know that we are all intricately connected and that there is really no separation. It's just that the mind doesn't have the ability to fully comprehend what that actually looks like.
Yes.
And so what we're talking about is like one little minute way of understanding that.
I love it. It's just like, this is, as Betsy said, this is the overachievers. So,
yeah.
Well, okay. And so Diana is not home yet, so I will definitely be watching the replay and looking for the books. Purchase responsibly, know your limits. All of Jennifer's information is linked below. So, if you're curious, go do that. And yeah, what a massive topic, extremely appealing. It's fascinating for me, and sometimes I'll be honest with you, it probably has something to do when the transits are going on. Sometimes I don't care. So,
and that's okay too.
yes.
Right? But if you notice, a day or two has gone by and there's this kind of pattern of feeling a certain way, or something is coming up and you're going, I just can't kick this. What's going on? Right?
Yeah.
It's important to be able to recognize it. So more than anything, being able to observe yourself and just kind of go, oh, look, I'm feeling this way.
Oh, yeah.
There's something in that.
Yeah. And Michelle just said, I just checked to see if I had the gate that caused anxiety. Hi, Gomez. So, and I think one of the, okay, so thank you. And Betsy said, I'm a lazy lion. I just want somebody to figure it out for me and tell me all about it. Well, yeah. What were you going to say, Jen?
Well, you can get your chart and
Yes.
we're reading.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There you go. You know, yeah. What other things? Okay, so this is not even the tip of the iceberg. It's, oh, look, there's an iceberg
Yeah, far off in the distance.
far off in the distance. It's like, woohoo! I think I see an iceberg. Um, so we've built on this. We talked about human design as a great way of understanding some of our natural tendencies, our natural skill set, our natural avoidances, and the way we engage with the world.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of different things that do that. A lot of, astrology does that. The Enneagram, astrology, all of the different versions do it. The Meyer-Briggs does it. So there's lots of different things. What I'm wondering is, it feels very much like having something like this could also support me if I were wanting to do some really foundational changes, in that, from that idea of that conditioning aspect. My parents always said this about me, and if I understand how that impacted me, then I can withdraw its power, and I can release the tightness of that bound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's a lot of different things that can be done with this that go beyond what you can do with the Myers-Briggs and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's interesting because I've worked with those. I've worked with the Enneagram. I mean, I think I mentioned last time I was introduced that when I was 12, right? Like I've done some
Yeah.
extensive work with the Enneagram and I love it to bits and pieces. I just find that, there's certain aspects that this can go deeper, especially when we look at the gene keys and we look at the golden path and what we can look at when it comes to understanding ourselves on a much deeper level. And so, when we talk about that conditioning piece, we we have this, the world tells us be this way, do this thing,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I'll take this as an example, okay? Most of the world is told, go for it. You want your dreams, you got to make them happen. Trailblaze, make it, go for it. Okay. 10% of the world's population are manifestors.
Yes.
Only 10% of the world's population are supposed to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
66, now it was 70 percent of the world's population are generators. They are here to respond to the stimuli around them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That means they may be going for stuff, but only in response to things around them.
Yes.
Right? If they try to trailblaze, they are going to hit walls and they're going to burn themselves out.
And we want to avoid that.
Yeah, most definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so when we talk about the way that the world tells us we're supposed to be versus what actually resonates and feels good for us and lights us up and builds our energy and builds our vitality and gives us all of the strength and energy we need to push forward, two very different things.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so what this does is it gives us permission to do it in a way that is correct for us.
I don't know about you all, but that's really powerful. Getting permission, using this information to have permission to approach things in the way that is uniquely me. And for you to do the thing that is, inherently your best way of doing something.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, it's huge. I mean, yeah. Yeah, it is way more complex. But I think it's huge. That's really powerful. I think that, I mean, okay, that's very empowering. Thank you, Jen.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, ooh, kids, you do it in your way. And I'm saying that a lot of times to people. And you know what's interesting? Okay, um, so do what you can individually and feels right for us.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, Gomez, you'll have to rewatch, dude. This is a pretty intense topic. So, um,
Yeah. I mean, when you really think about it, how many times do we, get asked to do something or invited to do something, and the body says yes or no? We get this feeling of, I really want to, or no way, that's not for me. Or we have this emotional moment and we don't know if it's right or not.
yes,
And then we feel like we have to respond, or we feel like we have to respond in a certain way that doesn't feel correct,
yes,
right? And
yes.
that's all the mind and the conditioning and everything else jumping in, forcing us to do something that's out of alignment with what's true.
Hmm. Okay, I'm wondering, and hashtag overcomplicator. This information could be really powerful for parents with their children at key points in their life. When a parent understands that my child is a reflector, and
Mhm.
they need that time, and to make it okay for them to take that time.
Yeah,
Imagine growing up with that. Imagine that. It's like, holy crap.
it's huge. One of the things that Ra actually talks about in actually quite a few of his talks is the idea that if our generation and the older generations would have taken this to teach it to their children,
Hmm.
right, we would have a different level of being in the world,
Yes.
right? If we gave ourselves and our children permission to actually be who they are.
Yes. Yeah. That's when I was doing some postgraduate work. There was talking about appreciating a child's authenticity and recognizing it and valuing it,
Yeah.
and just letting and encouraging them to continue to strengthen that, because it helps with self-esteem.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. I mean, you think about, a child who has an emotional authority, and the reality is the majority of the world has emotional authority.
mhm,
For huge decisions, you're not meant to make them until you've ridden the full emotional wave. Most people don't even want to be in contact with their emotions, let alone ride the entire wave in order to find clarity to make a decision,
yes,
right? Then you add pressure from somebody else saying, come on, tell me, make a decision, I want to know. And in that moment, you feel good, so you say okay, or you feel bad, so you say no, and you haven't ridden that wave,
mhm,
right? And then where does that leave you?
yes. I mean, come on, everybody. We all know this. Wow. I mean, okay, so I mean, because we've been on an hour and 14 minutes, hour and 15 minutes. I now know I need to let you have some time because you are going on with Twillo Talk live tonight
Hmm.
at 5 p.m. Eastern.
At 5, yes.
At 5 p.m. Eastern. What would be some other takeaways? Because, trust me, we're going to be talking about these, which are going to relate to that in next month. So, but
Hmm.
what are some key takeaways, Jennifer, as I put you on the spot to summarize 3 hours worth of information that has taken you 20 years of learning?
Key information. Just about gates and transits specifically?
Anything you want to tell us, the floor is yours.
Oh, goodness.
No pressure. I invite you to share some things that, are important for, just what do you think is important for us to remember? Because this is like the first time. It's like Jen has said, this has been incredible. My brain is somewhat hurting. And
Yeah. Okay, so I think the first thing I want to have as a takeaway here is we got onto this topic because we had talked about having a chat about the cards.
Yes.
And so we said we really need to do a deep dive into the transits and gates.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, you wouldn't normally deep dive into the transits and gates until you've really deep dived into a lot of the other stuff.
Yes.
So if you don't have your head around it and it's not clear and all of that, that's okay, because there is a ton of other information that is actually really important before you get crazy into all of this stuff.
Good.
Okay? So that's going to be my first thing. It's okay. Take a step back.
Yes. Take 2
Right?
steps back.
Yeah, it's fine. If you really want to know, the key things to know is just pay attention to what's happening in the moment, right? With the transits. You can do that by looking at the calendar. I will talk about them every Monday on Twillo Talk, just to get an idea of what's happening in the world, just to be mindful of what potential influences are happening.
Yes.
Okay, that is really all you need to do in the beginning anyway.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you're really interested in all of this, the first place to start is your aura type, your strategy, your authority.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
That's the main starting point. Okay. From there, you might want to look at your profile, which has to do with some lines, which we didn't even get into today. We might want to look at the centers before we look at gates and transits and all of that as well. So there's a lot of other things that we can dive into, but don't feel like you have to get your head around all of this right off the bat.
Yeah. Liminal Lark, hello, said, I'm loving this. If you understand the principles of astrology and the natal chart, this information is easier to grasp, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love it. Deep dive, deep dive, deep dive. I mean, Jen may not want to ever come back and see me again. She may suddenly, I'm just teasing. She may suddenly not be available for this, but yeah, yes. Love to look into the centers next time. And but wow.
Yeah.
So that's incredible. You did very well. This is a very complicated subject. You obviously know your stuff, because I'm sort of following some of it.
It's so complicated. I look like I know my stuff.
So when you write your first book, there you go. But so what do you have coming up?
Well, I have Twillo Talk at 5, and yeah, I think that's it for at least this week. I am working on a few things. We talk about these books. I actually am working on a journal series that's going to be coming out hopefully soon.
You just heard it here, people.
This is the first time I'm actually talking about it.
Ooh, okay.
So yeah, and so stay tuned, because I'll be sharing more about it as it gets closer to being launched.
Excellent.
But that'll be really cool. You want to talk about some self-reflection? That'll be a neat opportunity for that. And then I will be doing some with human design down the road as well. So we'll see how that pans out. Yeah.
And Jonathan Daly is here and is going to be watching back. So all of the links to Jennifer's website are below in the description. if you want to get a chart done, you can put in the information there. These are done by a human, namely this one right there. So it's not just computer generated. You do some more stuff with that. And
Yeah, so give me if I have a bunch, I will ask for your patience because I do have a crazy week, but I will get them all out to you.
so, but yeah, and yes, exclusive. So, and a lot of appreciation and thanks for your time. And I thank you. I so appreciate you being willing to spend the time with me. So,
Oh, I absolutely love being here. Thank you for having me.
and yeah, I learned that I invited you.
You did.
You said yes, and I also invited you for a discussion about something else in November that you are going to geek out about, and you and Tanis are coming on for that. And
Yes.
I will just simply say, stay tuned for that because that's a laugh and learn, and that's on November 20th. So you're going to have to wait.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody,
And we have another one when we do the cards, but I don't know when that's in.
we have the one, and it's the 13th. It's the week before. So in November, you get 2 weeks back to back with me on Mondays. So, but all right, everyone, thank you so very much. And yeah, Jen is the best.
Aw, thanks, Michelle.
And you know, Morella agrees. So I'm not telling you. I'm not telling you, but everyone has one. And you don't have to buy anything to be able to understand what we're talking about.
Oh, that's true.
So,
That is
all right.
true.
Yep. All right. Everybody, we will say goodbye. Thank you for being here. This has been incredible. So, we will see if we will talk backstage about maybe a third human design. So,
Okay.
thank
And we
you,
still
everybody.
haven't gotten into the gene keys, which we said we'd do too. So, I mean, we'll see how that goes.
Well, yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank